defensive end Willie Davis. This ESPN program...
It's never been easy for an offensive lineman to become rich and famous. In fact, it was 10 years after the opening of the Hall of Fame that an exclusively offensive lineman was inducted. And that honor went to Big Jim Parker of the Baltimore Colts. He was an All-Pro for 8 straight seasons. The first 4 years as a tackle, the second 4 as a guard. He was a huge man who always had a weight problem. His teammates said they could tell how much he weighed by the wrinkles in the back of his neck. 3 meant he weighed 280, 4 meant 300. But in direct proportion to his size was his warmth and generosity. Jim Parker had a heart a mile wide and a body big enough to contain it.
Get away!
In 1957, the Baltimore Colts' top draft choice was a 6-foot 5-inch, 300-pound All-American lineman named Jim Parker, who found pro football in Baltimore to be a step down from what he was used to at Ohio State.
It was a tough transition coming from Ohio State to Baltimore. For me, it was. It took me about 2.5 years to get accustomed to being poor. I came to Baltimore. In 1957, we had one whirlpool, and if you wasn't a quarterback, if you wasn't a running back, you didn't touch it. And in cold days, they had 2 hand warmers. That was for the quarterback and the receivers. And you had to fight to get one of those hand warmers to get your hand warm. I remember in Green Bay, it was so cold out there, me and about 5 other guys spotted an old glove laying on the field, and we dove on it and almost lost all 5 of us trying to get to that one glove to put on our hand.
Big Jim Parker lived in a dream world, and his surrealistic visions were the source and sustenance of his professional greatness.
In the back of my mind, I would fantasize a lot. On pass blocking, I would pretend I was a mountain, and that the other guy, he had to get around this mountain, and it was impossible. Sometimes I would pretend I was a freight train running over a pedestrian and just psych myself up before every play.
You run into Jim Parker, it's like just running into the side of a house. I mean, he likes to say of himself as a truck, but you can maybe get away from the truck, but here's the side of a house. And I ran into Parker, and he never gave an inch.
Parker was like putting an apartment house in the line. I mean, literally, the man was so huge. And when I first saw Jim Parker play, I was amazed because he had great quickness, good feet, good balance, and also this incredible size and strength. And I think perhaps the most difficult thing for me to deal with as a defensive lineman was someone who had this huge bulk, who still had enough mobility to move around.
Parker's blocks opened the holes that Lenny Moore ran through en route to the Hall of Fame. But it was in the service of quarterback John Unitas that Jim Parker truly excelled.
He was a workhorse. You couldn't work him hard enough. And I don't think Jim ever refused to do anything that you asked him. And you hardly got any conversation out of Jim in the huddle. Most of the times I asked, Jimmy, you all right? Mm-hmm. And that was it with him. But that's the type of individual that Jimmy was. He was an unselfish man, and he gave everything he had for you.
Parker's peerless pass protection enabled John Unitas and Raymond Berry to develop into the era's most successful pitch-and-catch combination. For when Jim Parker was living out his fantasies, it was tough for mere mortals to make it around the mountain.
I think the best offensive lineman that I played against had to be Jim Parker. He was the toughest individual that I've ever faced in my life.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I've seen him mash people and bury them and then gore them. Too many to list.
When I played for the Minnesota Vikings, Jim Parker not only knocked me out on a trap play, but also broke my hand running over me. Jim was the kind of fella who could get a player put on waivers, a good player. He ruined many Sunday afternoons for defensive ends who were good defensive ends until they tangled with him. He was super. I don't know of any defensive lineman who played at that time who would not vote for him for their all-time All-Pro team.
Jim Parker, the Baltimore Colts' moving mountain, and quite arguably the best offensive lineman of all. the first pure blocker to be elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Lake is a peaceful little resort community near the Idaho-Washington border. But there's more to